All right, we're going to continue our Battleground series with Wisconsin. President Trump won the state narrowly back in 2016, partly because of the low African-American turnout. It was the first time a Republican won Wisconsin since 1988 at the presidential level. It was supposed to go blue, at least what all the Hillary people thought. She was definitely caught napping in that. And if you believe the latest polls out of Wisconsin, which we didn't last time, the president is down 5 points. So what does Trump have to do to get Wisconsin back in the column again? Let's bring in the chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party, Andrew Witt. Chairman, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, out of almost 3 million votes cast last time, the president won by a landslide with 23,000 votes, right? What does he need to do to keep Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes in his column this time after such a close race last time?
Well, it's going to come down to grassroots army of volunteers, connecting with people one-on-one. That's why we started building our team earlier than ever. We actually started last July. Usually a presidential team being built out starts in February of the election year. We have more staff, bigger team than we've ever had before. The Democrats, Joe Biden, just brought on their state director about a month ago.
Sean mentioned the decline in African-American vote in 2016, that we saw about a fifth decline there. With a bigger turnout expected this year, does that concern you at all?
Actually, we are going on offense, going after the Black vote, going after the Hispanic vote. First time ever in the history of the Republican Party of Wisconsin, we opened up an office in the central city. We did that because the president has done so much for the Black community. I feel very strongly that we need to get out there, meet people where they are, talk about issues that they care about. Criminal justice reform and the First Step Act, opportunity zones, historic Black colleges and universities funding, sickle cell anemia research. These are all things that the president has done for the Black community in particular. We need to go out there. We need to talk to them about it. We need to get more of that vote in 2020. We're going on offense. We're not just sitting back and trying to turn out our base.
Chairman, Hillary kind of blew off Wisconsin last time, and to the extent that she was there, a lot of people didn't like her. Joe Biden isn't going to let that happen. I mean, they understand the mistakes the Hillary camp made, and also, let's be honest. I mean, Joe Biden isn't hated like Hillary Clinton is. Is that a problem that you have now? The shift in on the Democratic side that has a little bit of a tweak in how the outcome will be.
Sure. Well, first, Joe Biden's got to get out of his basement and come to Wisconsin. We haven't seen it yet. So we'll see if he shows up more than Hillary Clinton did. Secondly, the more he ties himself to AOC, Bernie Sanders, the harder it is to connect with people in rural Wisconsin and people in the Milwaukee suburbs, those WOW counties, and then in the Fox Valley. He is going to struggle if he's going to continue to move further and further to the left and adopt those policies of Bernie Sanders and AOC.
Let me shift to the House races real quick. I know you've got a big House race in Wisconsin 3. It's a seat that's been occupied since 1997 by Democrat Ron Kind. He's always been in this district that didn't seem like a good fit for him, yet he consistently gets reelected. This time you've got two people trying to take the seat for him on the Republican side. Do you think that this is the year that you can actually unseat Ron Kind?
Well, if you look at CD3 and you compare it and look at CD7, the 7th congressional district was won by President Trump by over 20 points. Over the last decade or so, we've seen that turn more and more red. We are seeing the same thing in the 3rd congressional district. President Trump won it by 4.5. As we talk to the people on the ground there, they say this year's different. This year is certainly different. We had at 1.78 candidates that were thinking of running. Now we have a primary down to 2 candidates. They'll go to the polls on August 11th, and we will see who wins that race. We've got a good candidate just endorsed by Vice President Pence and Governor Walker in Derek Van Orden, and it is going to be an exciting fall as we look at this race.
Interesting. All right. Well, there's a lot to pay attention to in Wisconsin. I think it's definitely going to be one of those races that we watch this time and see if the Democrats make the same mistakes they did time, and whether or not President Trump's record can now put him over the top a little more decisively than 23,000 votes this time. So, Chairman, thanks for being with us and giving us an update. We'll sure check in with you as we get closer to November.
That'd be great. Thanks, guys.
Well, we just heard the chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party talk about getting the African American and Latino vote in the state. He says the more Joe Biden ties himself to Bernie Sanders and AOC, the harder it will be to connect with the people of Wisconsin. Let's bring in the former governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Governor, it's good to see you. Welcome.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Governor, the chairman of your party there in Wisconsin says, Trump's going to carry Wisconsin again, but we all know that it was very close last time. Hillary ran a bad campaign. She ignored Wisconsin. She took it for granted. Biden campaign clearly is not doing that in terms of its ground game this time. Are you concerned that because that changed, Biden has a better chance now of carrying the state?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the president can still win, but I don't think he can take anything for granted. As you correctly noted, after Hillary lost the primary 4 years ago to Bernie Sanders, she never came back to Wisconsin again. The president and the vice president were there many times, as they have many times since. But it's going to take a concerted effort. It's going to take a renewed focus on jobs, on people's health, on keeping people safe, which I think the president's capable of doing. But it's also going to take reminding the voters in Wisconsin about how horrible a track record Joe Biden has on those very issues, on health, the economy, and on our safety. And that's, again, going to be close, but he can win.
Governor, the chairman said that the state is trending red in some of these congressional districts. But do you actually think that's true for the entire state?
Well, it's a battleground state, mainly because, like other key states, North Carolina is a good example. It parallels it. You get the large urban areas are increasingly rapidly growing more and more Democrat. You've got rural, suburban, and even some in-between areas that are going more Republican. And that's the balance. In Wisconsin, you've got the left of the far left. In places like Madison, you've got more traditional Democrats, blue-collar Democrats in Milwaukee. But the other congressional districts are actually becoming more Republican. In fact, there's a real shot to pick up at least one seat in the House and a number of legislative districts outside of the big cities, Madison and Milwaukee. But that's where the vote center is, and those areas are growing. So that's what makes it tough statewide for the president.
We talked about this with the chairman last time. The reporting suggests that the African Americans did not come out the way that the Hillary campaign thought they would. If they come out in the numbers that they have in previous years, that's a big problem for the president in places like Milwaukee and Madison. Is that right?
There's no doubt about it, although that's why I thought earlier this year, and I think this is part of why you get a coordinated effort nationwide to try to attack the presidential race, because you look at substance, before the pandemic, lowest ever recorded rate for unemployment for African American, Hispanic American, Asian Americans. You look at criminal justice reform after years of talk, this president actually delivered on it. I think that's why there's a concerted effort to try and undermine him on the issue of race. And the president would be wise to remind people of that. And on things like education, remind them of the stark contrast between a president who's helping in cities like Milwaukee, expands school choice options for African American, Hispanic American, and other families, versus Joe Biden, who's in lockstep with the bosses at the teachers union.
Right now, every issue is being seen through the lens of COVID. Just yesterday, the New York Times published an article outlining the 4 swing states that are in the red zone, Wisconsin actually being one of those, seeing quite a spike there. But Governor, how can you talk about anything else if you see all these cases on the rise?
Well, it's going to be a combination. It's health, wealth, and safety. What I mean by that, health, we need to continue to hunker down on making sure that everyone's healthy in our state, and all those that visit from places like Illinois and elsewhere are safe. We need to make sure that wealth, not wealth in the large sense, but wealth in terms of your income and that of your family. And then safety, with all the riots that we've seen, thankfully not many in Wisconsin, but certainly in places like Chicago, New York, Portland, and Seattle, we need to be safe. So if people feel better about their future in terms of health, better about their future in terms of their jobs, and better in the future in terms of being safe, the president wins. If there is a stark contrast and they feel bad about that, again, it makes it very, very difficult for the president. So that's key to his election.
But Governor, and we're almost out of time, so I don't mean to jam you on this, but I think Lindsay's point, and Dick Morris brought this up the other day, if COVID cases are on the rise, if deaths are on the rise, if hospitalizations are on the rise, I don't see how people can overlook that. And so you know what you're saying, health and safety and all that. That's exactly right. But you can't have that if COVID is on the rise. Isn't that correct?
Totally agree with you. It's why I advocated to the president, the RNC chair, not to have the convention, to show the American people his focus was on their health and the healthy economy, and that's what he did. He canceled it.
No, and I think that's right. I mean, he's got to, if coronavirus has to get tackled in order for him to win this thing. And I don't mean solved or get a vaccine, but he's got to do all the stuff that he's doing right now and really kind of get voters to understand that this administration is the right administration to tackle this virus. So appreciate your comments, Governor.
Canceled the big rallies. He's focused, I think, overwhelmingly on doing just that, but he needs to keep doing it through November.
Yep, that's exactly right. Governor, it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it was the talk of the town yesterday. Big tech CEOs answering questions from Congress. We'll discuss the big takeaways and if anything was actually accomplished after the break.